There's something researchers call acquired helplessness. It was first observed in a psychology lab in the 1960s, but it doesn't stay in labs. It moves into kitchens, childhood bedrooms, long-term relationships, family group chats. It looks like this. A person who is fully capable of making decisions stops making them. Not because they lost the ability, but because, over a long enough period of time, the people around them made those decisions first. Every time. Until the person stopped reaching. This is not a video about toxic relationships in the way you usually hear about them. There's no screaming in this story. No cruelty. No obvious villain. This is about something quieter. And in many ways, harder to leave. Let me tell you about a woman named Dara. Dara was 37. She was sharp, observant, the kind of person who noticed things others missed. She worked as a translator. She spoke 4 languages, and yet she had not, in recent memory, chosen a single restaurant for herself. Not one. Her husband, Marcus, always chose. Not because he demanded to. Because he cared. He researched menus. He checked reviews. He knew her allergies better than she did. He ordered for her at restaurants. She'll have the salmon. She doesn't like anything too heavy. And he was usually right. That's the thing. He was usually right. Here's what nobody tells you about this kind of dynamic. It doesn't feel like control. It feels like relief. Having someone else manage the 1,000 small decisions of a life. What to eat, where to go, which doctor to see, which friend is actually good for you. It can feel like being taken care of. Like being loved so specifically that they've studied you. And study is not nothing. That's real attention. Real investment. But there's a difference between someone who pays attention to you and someone who pays attention instead of you. Dara noticed something one afternoon that she couldn't explain away. She was alone. Marcus was traveling for work, and she needed to call a plumber. A simple task. She had the phone in her hand for 40 minutes before she called. Not because she didn't know how. Not because she was afraid of plumbers. She kept thinking, what would Marcus say? Which one would he pick? Should I wait until he's back? A plumber. She needed a plumber, and she had outsourced the decision to a man who was in another city. That night she sat with that feeling for a long time. She didn't call it anything yet. She just let it sit there, uncomfortable, like a stone in a shoe you keep walking on because stopping to remove it feels like too much trouble. There's a researcher named Harriet Lerner who has written extensively about what she calls the disease to please, but she makes a distinction. Most people miss some people become pleasers because they fear conflict. Others become pleasers because they were trained to be receivers. People who wait to be given direction, told what they need, shown who they are through someone else's eyes. The training is never conscious. The trainer never thinks of themselves as training. They think of themselves as. Helping Marcus came home. Dara tried something she hadn't done in years. She picked the restaurant. Marcus didn't argue. He didn't complain. He just said, quietly, while looking at the menu, "You know I can't eat anything here with my stomach the way it's been." He was right. She had forgotten, or maybe she had never been paying that kind of attention because she'd never needed to. They ordered pizza, instead his choice, and Dara sat across from him thinking, when did I stop being the kind of person who knew things about the people she loved? When did I stop being the person who paid attention and become only the person being attended to? I want to stop here and ask you something. Think about the last 3 significant decisions in your life, not what to have for lunch. I mean the real ones. Where you lived, what job you took, which relationship you stayed in or left. Can you trace those decisions back to yourself? Or do you find, when you follow the thread, that the voice at the beginning of each choice belonged to someone else? This isn't a judgment, it's a diagnostic, because the first step to reclaiming your decision-making isn't confrontation, it's just noticing who speaks first inside your head and asking whether that voice is yours or borrowed. Dara eventually went to therapy, not because the marriage was obviously broken, but because she had started feeling like a guest in her own life, present, comfortable, welcome, but not at home. Her therapist asked her a question in the 3rd session that reoriented everything. She asked, "What do you want that you've never said out loud?" Dara laughed, then she went quiet, then she said, "I want to move to the coast. I've wanted it for 11 years. Her therapist asked why she hadn't. Dara said Marcus's job was here, his family was here, the house was here. Her therapist said, "I asked what you wanted. You gave me a list of reasons it wasn't possible. Those are different questions. Here's the insight I want to leave with you. And it's not a comfortable one. When someone makes all your choices, they do not just take your autonomy, they take your failures and your failures, the ones that are actually yours. are the only raw material from which a real self can be built. Marcus had protected Dara from so many bad restaurants, bad decisions, bad outcomes, and in doing so, he had protected her from the very experiences that would have shown her who she was. When you are never allowed to fall, even by someone who loves you, especially by someone who loves you, you never find out how you land. You never find out that you can land. Dara didn't leave Marcus. That's not where this ends. But she did something that changed the shape of their relationship permanently. She started finishing her own sentences. That's the only way she could describe it. She would start saying something, an opinion, a preference, a plan. And instead of trailing off and looking at Marcus, she would finish even when he had already started talking, even when his answer was better, even when she was wrong. She started being wrong in ways that belonged to her. 6 months later, she told Marcus she wanted to spend a weekend at the coast alone. He worried. He said, "You've never traveled alone." She said, "I know." He let her go. She came back, different, not dramatically different, not in a way that made a good story for dinner parties, just more there, more present, more herself in the room. Marcus noticed he didn't say anything for a few weeks. Then one evening he said, "I didn't realize I was doing that." She said, "I know you didn't." And they sat with that, not as an accusation, not as a wound, just as a truth that had finally been allowed to breathe. The people who love us most are not always the people who help us grow the most. Sometimes they are the people who need us to stay small, not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear that if we grow away from them. Fear that if we start choosing, we'll choose something that doesn't include them. That fear is human, it's understandable, and it doesn't make them the villain, but it does make their love, however genuine, a thing you may need to gently, firmly, respectfully resist, because on the other side of that resistance is something no one can hand you: yourself.